I hope you could sleep good. You didn't think too much of Ukraine. Yeah, so what I'm going to do this morning is I would like to hear somebody from Malawi, somebody from India, and here in Switzerland, and why I'm in Bada. What was your takeaway yesterday? And then we'll go on from there, just to so that I can understand if there is something that I need to repeat before I go forward, because I thought yesterday was very important. Community involvement, finishing the causes and the approach, how to deal with poverty. So it's something that I think I need to hear from you guys. What was your takeaway? So maybe let's start with Waiwang Imbada. What was something that you could take away yesterday? And then India, then Malawi, finally Switzerland, the host.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to be in class again. Our takeaway yesterday, we saw how we are to help the needy in the community. We look at the Bible scripture in Leviticus 19, 9 to 10. And the points we highlighted there is that it is God's plan, it is God's intention that we help the less privileged among us and the sojourners that are within our gates. And he says we should utilize our resources to take care of them. And the principle we learned there yesterday was to engage them, not just to give them things freely, because that will create a lane dependency. We should also engage them. We should also enable them to work for themselves. And we see also that those that need help are the less privileged, the orphans, the widows, and the fatherless. And we also see yesterday that what they have in common is this deficiency, this disease, this lack, this need for monetary and material gain. We also went ahead to talk about goals. We should also we should find the purpose of our life. That's the first step in helping people. We should help them to discover who they are, what is God's mindset, what is the purpose of life. If we help them to know that, then from there, they will start their own journey to recovery. This is the little that I shared. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sam. God bless you. Okay, India.
Good morning, sir. Yesterday we learned about what is the solution to the causes of poverty and find your life purpose. In the efficient first chapter, you shared the process. You explained about that, and the personal growth model, goals, motivation, vision, planning, training. We learned that one. And the biblical development, secular development, humility, good attitude, love towards others, don't talk too much, like that, especially then, and key elements of sustainability. Finally, we came to Ukraine, how to rebuild the country. We shared about Ukraine. This is that we learned as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Biblical development versus secular approach to development. Thank you, Malawi.
Yes, there are a lot of things that we have grasped throughout the teaching, more especially on the cause of poverty. And yes, we could see that a mindset also contributes to poverty, but throughout the teaching, we were able to discover new things which could contribute to poverty, of which we could see there are natural causes and supernatural dimension, of which natural causes could be disasters, like cyclone we have experienced here in Malawi, and in the super dimension, and we could see God or devil himself pulling down maybe catastrophe. And yes, even a structural evil itself, it contribute to poverty, personal evil, and etc. And with the scenario on the Ukraine, how to rebuild Ukraine, if we are development agents, yes, of course, on where do you start? First thing as development agent, we can do the resource assessment by approaching the community. And the first thing we found out that on the resource assessment, we could see people as first resources. If you want to rebuild Ukraine, you have to involve people as first resources, and then to go about look for material things required to build the land. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Malawi. All right, Switzerland. Any representative from here?
Yeah, I think as today we did not take the turn, so we'll take just from what is there. So first of all, where do we start is first to reconciliation of with the neighbors in the country, and also because there is a lot of trauma that where people go through. So to deal with the situation of trauma, what we can do for them, and also as Ukraine is a family-oriented culture, so to be with the communities, to tell them that we are with them and to walk with them. That would be the start. And what do we look for is look for the basic requirements depending upon the season. If it's a winter season, we would look more first for housing and heating system. And the main also would be to empower the local people to take the strengths of the country, what are the strengths, and not to import people from other countries to help them, but just to empower them that they reconstruct their own country.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think it's going good. What I want to remind you, it's about this foundation of development. To have this picture in mind when it comes to anything that we need to do in community development. Natural resources, they need to be available. Effective government, infrastructure, financial services, and businesses. So when we look at Ukraine, you make that assessment, the natural resources, you find that they have that. But the question will be, is the government effective now? Is the government effective now? And if the answer is not, what is making the government not be effective? Okay. What is making the government not to be effective? And when we look at the infrastructure, in times of war, you get to hear that say, oh, the enemies, they are targeting critical infrastructures. Okay, so why is it like that? That's the enemies, they target the critical what? Infrastructures, you know, because this, they make life possible for people. So the idea is to destabilize, is to make the life of people, you know, not working. The financial, the financial services, they need to be rebuilt, and the businesses as well, they need to be rebuilt for life to be possible. So, of course, we said that the life or the success of every country, it starts with people, building the people of the country, and these people now, they can organize the other systems. So personal growth is very important, but I'll come back to Ukraine again after going through relief and development continuum. Is that okay? So that we have a little bit knowledge and to come back to discuss the issue of Ukraine, so that we can see what changes and how can we do in the way that is helping the people of Ukraine. So when you work in a development, there is the terms, there's technical terms that they use, and it's the way to eradicate poverty, to deal with the question of poverty. So as I said, the way you define poverty, it also influences your solutions to it. Okay, if you only define poverty in terms of material, then your solution towards providing the solution, it will be material oriented. So now in development, they use 3 words. They said relief, and there is rehabilitation, and the third stage is development. Relief, rehabilitation, and development. So relief, it's a situation that a catastrophe or something bad has happened, and these people cannot help themselves. Without the help of other people or international agencies, they will die, because it's something that it was not planned. It has just happened. So in other words, it's like you are stopping the bleeding. Okay, that's relief. You are stopping the what? Somebody is bleeding, has been in an accident, and then you need to stop the bleeding as soon as possible. Otherwise, the person will die. So that's relief. Okay. Yeah. So you need to wear gloves to protect yourself from HIV and other things, because it happens so fast that if you are not careful, you can be in trouble yourself. So that's relief. And after relief is when the second stage of rehabilitation kicks in. And this is now teaching the people to walk again. Okay? You're accompanying the people, walking alongside the people towards their path for development. And then the last stage is development. But the challenge is here. Where do you stop relief? So many countries, they have created dependency because they did not discern the time to stop giving relief. So then, because people, they are used to receive free food, then it will just go on and on and on and on and on. And then it creates a culture of dependency. And I want us to read the story from Luke, and then I will explain the steps from this passage, and then we will see what are the principles that we can learn from this story from the Gospel of Luke, chapter number 10, verse 25 to 36. Catherine, would you like to read for us?
One day, an expert in religious law stood up to test Jesus by asking him this question: "Teacher, what should I do to inherit eternal life?" Jesus replied, "What does the law of Moses say? How do you read it?" The man answered, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength, and all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." "Right," Jesus told him. "Do this, and you will live." The man wanted to justify his actions, so he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" Jesus replied with a story. A Jewish man was traveling from Jerusalem down to Jericho, and he was attacked by bandits. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him up, and left him half dead beside the road. By chance, a priest came along, but when he saw the man lying there, he crossed to the other side of the road and passed him by. A temple assistant walked over and looked at him lying there, but he also passed by on the other side. Then a despised Samaritan came along, and when he saw the man, he felt compassion for him. Going over to him, the Samaritan soothed his wounds with olive oil and wine and bandaged them. Then he put the man on his own donkey and took him to an inn, where he took care of him. The next day he handed the innkeeper 2 silver coins, telling him, "Take care of this man. If his bill runs higher than this, I'll pay you the next time I'm here." Now, which of these 3 would you say was a neighbor to the man who was attacked by the bandits? Jesus asked.
Right, it's an interesting story. So I would like us to take 5 minutes and just talk about it. Can you see the principles here of relief, rehabilitation, and development? So 5 minutes, just talk about it, and then we can learn some few things. Then minutes. Yeah, sure.
So many people say, so we hear something going on across the world or something like that, and so often we just think, it's not in our country, it doesn't affect me, so, what am I to do about it? I'll send money, whatever. But it's like, the most hated man, not the ones that were
didn't care about
expected,
who it
the
was
most
or their
hated
history.
one is the one that
Saw
actually
someone who
stepped
was
out
suffering on
and
the side of the
showed
road, they're gonna help
who
them.
had compassion and
So I
did
think
something.
it's kind of
So
a
I love
easy takeaway in the sense of like no matter who we
never
are, no matter who our enemies are, the
responsibility
people we don't like,
is
they're never
it's-
immediate need. There's
But Jesus
relief
does
that
use a
comes from
very,
just
very
helping
offensive
us heal it in
story.
front of you.
Actually, a Samaritan man who they all hated
So I see.
is actually showing better being a better neighbor than those the Jews that were exactly
me, but that's the other 2 that when I think the priest or something that he
It's
also
very
didn't
challenging.
help because then he would become
Defiled.
bully. Yeah, exactly, things like that. Like, it was not just like, oh, I want to be my kind of thing, but it's your worldview impacts in that situation.
What do you think the point is
Yeah.
between like where it switches?
It's something that
It's
is
true, yeah, I'll
born
never
into your life,
fully,
where it's like,
thought about it now, right? It's like the cleanliness, like definitely, I'm still doing this. So of course, she says they want 5, but it doesn't say that because of it, they're going to defile, they want 5. So that's definitely true about what would have been understood.
I wanted to change the music. I watch TV and I forgot like that
religious tradition or
you only read it.
Mhm.
That is so rude.
it's very good
But,
challenge.
but they really also have
Mhm.
struggle probably in their own what to do if I walk by, it's not good, but if I touch this, then I get defiled. But
It's also very human behave.
I mean, how can you see someone wounded and just not go close at least? And you, maybe
They're beyond inconvenience, then of course be defiled, like go inside
I
the
don't
temple,
know.
you know, these are things of the Jewish priests, and then he has his temple and everything.
Yes.
So before I think we almost look at it as like an inconvenience, like, oh, I don't want to help the guy, it's an inconvenience, but now it's like, actually, no, like, they genuinely, like, that's like the proof of, okay, no, they just didn't want to, like, no matter helping them, they just didn't want to be defiled and have to go through the rituals, and so it's even like, maybe not about inconvenience, it's like absolutely about inconvenience, and they just didn't want to do the work that the Lord commanded them to. So
one thing that I really like, it doesn't
interesting.
depend
Against that whole religiosity too, and always following the law versus sometimes you have to take care of your neighbor. That's interesting.
And also,
You
let's
know,
say,
therefore, right?
even the bill
So
runs
I could
more higher,
Jesus
it's not
pick
that, okay, I
invite
want you
a
now
priest
and
to show them. I mean,
you
it
get some
requires
treatment
more
and
cultural
payment.
study, I
But
guess.
he really
But
said,
to
even
do
when
it.
I come back,
It's so easy to talk, to judge those who
extending
walk
it is
by
not
because
helping, but
it's important to help.
fully
But
help.
how often do we
Yes.
walk by like people who have our own reasons why we don't help, and then or maybe
And I
they
think, I
are
don't know,
begging
but
for
I
the
have,
wrong reason,
I really
or
believe that
we also have our
human life
reasons
is
why we
very
walk by.
precious. I think precious than anything else, and if you have chance
And
to
easily
save
justify
or to
ourselves.
protect,
I think like, oh, well, I could help, but this reason, maybe, yeah. Good point.
It's very interesting what you're saying, just even thinking about flight. It's like, as a human,
But it's cool because it's American
$600
flights.
being paid for a flight, you know. As a human, I think,
It's the above and beyond, you know, took him to an inn, took care of them, like he paid for his stay, like, you know, he could have just like, hi, I found this guy dying, it's like, here you go. But you know, took care of them, paid for his room,
stewarding your life well,
and
also in front
went
of
above
you
and
well,
beyond even too.
and you're also able to
It's not
take
a necessary
care of someone.
sacrifice
So I
that,
think
yeah.
you know, he commands us later about
in
like,
that
you know,
way.
Meg, as your cloak, you know, it's also walk 1 mile, walk 2, you know.
So
Yeah,
it's
Like
it's
that principle,
Yeah,
but yet
it's
it's like, you know,
balancing,
Samaritans, so it's
that's
like
how
the enemy
far
of Jews,
Yeah,
basically, yeah, yet still, they went above and beyond, so how much should we also?
He didn't just, put me in
The bear count,
yeah,
into the
to
donkey.
be like, okay, now you are there, you can care of mommy,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
he really made sure that everything is.
Maybe what is
And also
fascinating
like
is
how
like
it's
he
just like
says
he
like,
took pity on him.
Mm.
It's like the
I
compassion
mean, this man
that
comes
moved
and
him
asks
to do
Jesus, you
this.
shall love your Lord, your God, with all your heart, which
He was
speaks from the
full of
scripture.
Jesus.
The people, the guys, just two guys who are passing by, who knows the scripture, I assume,
Yeah.
priest and the Levite, but a Samaritan. But he does the act,
Yeah.
which is supposed to be done by the person who knows the scripture. So,
We didn't read
Yeah.
verse 37, I
and
think.
it just makes me to
There
think
it
of,
says, go and do likewise.
of course, I know it's not a wisdom. I remember being in isolation during COVID times, like
I would be curious
we are not
kind
able
of
to
to
deal with one
know,
another.
I mean,
It is like really
if you
interesting
would tell
times
the
for
story
me,
now,
especially.
who he would
And-
pick as
Right,
his Samaritan,
right.
Literally, people
because
don't want
this
to
is in their
talk
culture,
on
in
face
their time,
anymore,
like
you know.
what would he say
They
if
just
he
look
was here, who would he
somewhere
pick?
or
I don't know.
so
I
only
can imagine
at
how
one
we
point I
might
felt like so sad.
because
Like
this was
people are not
convicting to them,
interested to
Yeah.
for us
have a
it's
face
like the
contact.
priest to
Mhm.
see
And like
what's,
when they're going
kind of
over
what
the
is
fast, they're like,
People like real people in that time that they could, you know, walk to the synagogue and meet, you know, like say people like, you know, who could just
it reminds
walk
me
over to our
think
city hall, you know,
of
whatever, who knows these
that
people,
thing,
you know,
like,
I meet these
because
people.
these two guys are passing by,
Mhm.
but they did not
Yeah,
give
personally,
a
I
hand
was very
to the
personal.
Samaritan, to this guy who is wrong and who is stolen. But Samaritan dared to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our time is over.
Let's share.
When do you leave?
I said openly, I can too.
Which part?
if you want to
Yeah.
share, then you can
So
share.
sure, I'll share. Can I add anything on?
Let's come back, guys. Is the microphone on?
Yes, I
Right.
Mm.
All right. So let's start with Switzerland now, then India, Nigeria, then Malawi. What do you think is the representative for here?
I can share for our half of the room. So for our half, of course there is this, the Samaritan, this people who basically, worshipped and opposed the Jews' worship, and they opposed them, and yet Samaritans saw immediate need, despite kind of the background of the history. It said that they took pity on the man and then brought him in. So there's an immediate need that they didn't take into account all the history. They just saw something that needed relief, and they went in and helped. We were talking also about how the priest walked by, presumably didn't want to be defiled by the sick and the injured and all this, and because it made them unclean. And we were just talking about where do we do this, and who could be the priest and the temple helper, who could we see today, but that would be us, because this was very personal to them, like the Jews, they're priests, and maybe like us and our pastors, or for these people who were very close to us that we had a personal connection with, that they were just walking by and not doing anything. So but the relief was just immediate need, saw immediate need, helped, went above and beyond, and set them up for success.
Is it okay for me to speak for our side?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, we were also some very interesting conversations of, these were the people that knew the scriptures, and yet they weren't the ones that were moved with compassion and did something, which, as was said, is a very good test for our hearts. But secondly, it's very interesting that the Samaritan who actually helped the man, he was moved with compassion, of course, but then he dealt with it very wisely, in terms of, we were having a look at what the value of human life is. So, for example, if we have a flight and there's someone who needs help, what is more important, and is the human life more important than, say, the $600 or whatever we paid for the flight? And so it's very interesting just how he deals with it. But within that, it's very interesting. We noticed that he didn't take the man to his own house. He actually involved another person and kept him in the inn to look after him and things like this. So it was a very wise and interesting way that he did the balance of his own life and stewarding what he has very well in terms of his time, his commitments. He went away and then came back, and then also left it in the charge of someone he trusted, who was able to do that. So it was just a very interesting idea of, you don't have to do everything yourself, and even just that idea of how do you do it wisely, of looking after what God has given you, and then also making sure they get the help they need. So that was an interesting observation.
Right. Thank you so much. Big hand for Switzerland. Okay, India.
From this blue part, I saw the relief and rehabilitation. We saw in the picture also. You saw the man was walking. In the PowerPoint also you shared. It was like a man after the incident damage or anything, the man will be damaged. So someone has to help him. Someone has to help him or her. So that is rehabilitation. And from that part, the development is he have to slowly he have to develop himself after the rehabilitation. That's.
Thank you. Very interesting. Time for that. Okay. Nigeria.
All right. in this context, we were able to fathom that the man that was robbed, the relief that the Good Samaritan gave to him was he first of all bound the wounds, he oiled it, he take good care of it. That is the relief in this context. And he went ahead and carried him to a suitable place that he could be further be taken care of till he recover. So in this context, I believe the only relief given to people will not go enough. Rather, we still have to go ahead and rehabilitate. We should go ahead and teach them. We should go ahead and engage them. Okay, this was your problem. Okay, now this is the way forward. This is what you should do. This is what you should not do. And this is the way forward. So in this context now, we saw how this Good Samaritan took the man, bound him, took him to the hospital till the man recovered. So this is only the little thing we have.
Thank you so much. Malawi.
Yes, just to cut it short, because it's like a repetition of what our friends have said already. When the guy met him, like the Samaritan, met the injured man, he bound his wounds and he gave him a care at the spot as a relief, and then he took him to an inn for rehab that he could recover well. And then he gave some money and he promised the care that the other money he will give when he turns after the guy has recovered. That's for the government. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so this story, I think it's really making the point home. You can see that in the picture, the man was walking normal. His life was okay. And then something, a catastrophe or a disaster has happened in his life. So he has gone down the ditch. So without somebody pulling him up, he will die in the ditch. So that's where people need relief. So you can see in the story, the writer, Luke, is making sure that we get the point. He said the guy was half dead. That's a strong point. The guy was half dead. So that means he could not help himself. If somebody is half dead, half alive, half dead. So if without the intervention of somebody, the guy will be gone. So you see that the people, as they said in this group here in Switzerland, the people who knew the scripture, who were supposed to be loving and caring, they say they didn't care. Maybe they said, oh, maybe he's being punished by his sins or something. Or they might have good reasons because they are priests. The priests, they were not allowed to touch blood if they are offering things. We don't know. We cannot really judge them what was their motives. But still, this guy, the writer is telling us that he was half dead. That means he needed help. So no matter whatever the things that these people they were doing, they could consider that this person is in grave danger. So that's when you need relief. So relief can be done by anybody, by local agencies or international agencies. Are we together?
Yes.
Relief can be done by anybody. That's the principle that we are learning here, because the expert who knew the law, the expert who was supposed to love God, they didn't do it. It was a Samaritan who was not even a friend of the Jews. They were enemies, you see. So it gives us a picture that anybody can do relief, okay? Because this man was a Jewish man, eh? That means that his own people should have taken care of him. But it's now anybody, eh? Somebody else from Samaritan who is, giving the relief. So relief, anybody else, any person can help because it's not planned. But the second point we are saying that this man, the Samaritan, after binding the wounds, oiling it, he took him to the inn. Okay, so this part now, it implies that you need experts, okay? An expert who can take care of the rehabilitation. So what is this inn? Maybe we can interpret that in our modern day, it can be like a hospital, okay? And that somebody like the nurses or some people can take care, who have the expertise to take care of people who are what? Injured. That's why it says that he paid something. And they said, if it is not enough, I'll pay what? Again. Are we together? So that's rehabilitation. So when it comes to point number 2, step number 2, rehabilitation, we need experts. We need people who knows what they are doing. Okay? Because if it's just anybody else, they don't even know what they are doing, you create problems, then you can help. Okay? Some people, when they lose things, they need counseling, they need experts, They need people who can really help them to process what they've been going through, what happened and why that happened, People have questions, why me, all these things. So you need people who are experts. So sometimes you see that people who are not experts, they are trying to rehabilitate people. Yeah.
Would you consider a pastor an expert?
Yeah, spiritual expert, yeah. Giving hope. Yeah. So yeah. So you need experts. That's why this guy was taken to the inn to be taken care of. And here is an interesting point also that we need to notice. The guy did not stay. Okay? He did not stay. He continued on his journey. And that he said he will come back later to check again if the money was enough to bring rehabilitation. So during rehabilitation, you have to know when you have to be there and when you have to go. So that after you have gone, you can come again to monitor and evaluate the situation, whether it's working or not working. Are we together? So that's a principle that we can learn from this story. That it's not that always you are there and you say, "Oh, who are you guys?" and you need to know when to leave. You need to know what is your part. You need to know when to give in the hands of experts. Otherwise, you're going to have problems. Yes.
So when you're in an organization, for example, a medical organization, and you are considered one of the experts, but there aren't enough doctors. So for example, people are coming in every day to a clinic, and there aren't enough doctors. And yet, how do you know when to leave in that situation so you don't burn out, but then it means there will be a gap for the people for help?
That's a very good question. When you are an expert, you are the only one, and you have for many people coming. When do you leave? It's very important. When it comes to project management, the first thing when you are designing a project that you're going somewhere else, it says you already need to create your exit plan. Okay? If you don't create an exit plan in the project, then it will go on forever and forever. So in that situation, from day one, when you are there, take somebody that you can start mentoring, teaching, So over a period of time, this person will be gaining the skills and the knowledge. Then you begin to try, to try to leave some simple things he can do or she can do. And after some times you do together, you correct the mistakes and you go on. And then you'll find that after some time, you're going to see that they are able to do it. You know? I can give a story, an example of when we went to Malawi in 2017 to start the school, and my wife had a plan from the beginning that he want to work with 3 directors from the beginning, so that these people, they learn the job, they know how to do the things, so that they don't need him or her as as the school is growing. So she started doing that. Before she was really involved, she was having the class, she was teaching herself and training the teachers, and later the responsibility changed. She became a coach. She could not even have a class, and right now they don't even need her. You know, they don't need her. The school is big, has grown, is self-propagating, self-running. You know, they don't need her. She can go just to see the things how it's going, but a school doesn't depend on her. So that's the plan. You know, that's a plan. Some other projects that we are doing, we said it's the 10-year project. You know, so now we're in the process of raising other leaders, so that when 10 years is over, we can say, okay, the project can run on its own. So sorry, it was a long answer, but that's what you do. That whenever you go to a place, even if you're alone, take somebody from the first day forward. Okay? So here, rehabilitation, coming back, you need experts. And then for development, the idea is to prepare people to be even better than before. That's development. Okay? So when this person, let's take an example of this man who fell into the bandit, the hand of robbers. When he's recovered from this problem, I think he'll be even more careful to take the same route. Okay? Whenever he's going to travel again the same route, he'll be careful. Maybe you have bodyguards. Maybe, he will do his calculation. Okay? Because he knows that when I was going through the streets, I was attacked. So that's development. Are you together? Mm-hmm. So development, our help, when we are helping people, should not create dependency. You should give the opportunity to the expert to do their job, so that you can prepare the people to be better than before the catastrophe. Are you together?
What are some good steps on how to release people back into their own society and not be dependent?
Very good. What are the steps to help people to release people so that they are not don't come into dependency? When it comes to discipleship model, they said there are 4 steps. That the first thing is that you do a watch. Okay? You do whatever you are doing, and they are watching. So you are kind of like a classroom here. You are teaching them, they're watching, they see what you're doing, how you're doing things. And the second step is that you do together. Okay? You do together, if it's a teaching that you teach a little bit and they teach a little bit, if there's something you're building, you build, you show, they build. Okay? That's the second step. And the third step is they do, you monitor. Okay? You are there, you watch, you assist. They are the one doing, you assisting. And the 4th step is that they do by themselves. But the danger, and also it's a human problem, that always we want to be in charge. Okay? We want to be in control. We want to, sometimes we are too much advising, too much, so that the people, they are not growing. They just depend on you, Said, okay, as long as this guy is there, we cannot do anything. So the best way, if you want to release the people, not to depend on you, you have to be strict to follow these ways, okay? Yes. I do, you watch, we do together, you do, I assist, and then you are good to go. Another question?
Please only answer this if you're okay and it's not distracting from where you want to go with teaching. But yeah, what are some of the ways, because, you know, helping people can become very fulfilling to the person who's helping, and it can almost be a part of your identity. What are some ways you can guard against that so it is not, you know, stroking your ego to help people?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. How can you help people without creating dependence? Because helping makes you to feel good, you know. And actually, there's a simple way to do that. Don't try to play God, okay? Because you are not God. You're not the savior. So many people, they always have this argument that I am doing this because without me, they cannot survive. That's a lie. That's really a lie. Because these people, they have been surviving without you. No, now you find them already grown up. You think they are not going to survive without you. So, but it feels good. Like, let's say, I'm in the same category. I'll say we have a development organization. So the goal is you want to keep your job. So that's the challenge that most of organizations or NGO, they want to be relevant. They want to be there. So some they'll do it even extra, not to teach the local people to gain the expertise that they need, because otherwise they are not needed. But the goal of development is to make yourself irrelevant, that people should not need you.
Yes.
Okay, but if you want to play God complex, then you have to be there, because God is eternal. God is everlasting. We need God every day. So many people, they play that long. They want to be a God. They want to make sure that the people cannot survive without me. But we need to overcome that, and it's not easy. It's something that we have to be praying for it, that God should open our eyes, saying, hey, I am not God. I can only do what I can do. The rest I leave it to God. And these people, they have minds, they have the intelligence, and they know how to solve their problems. It might not be efficient, it might not be like effective, maybe like your ways, but they need to grow through that.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. That's a very good answer.
Okay. Any question from India or Malawi or Wyoming Ibadan before I continue? This is very important. In Malawi, you just have a cyclone now. Do you have any question?
Yeah, we have one question. Well, we have understood how you have broken down how to break away from dependency. So based in our nation, Malawi, depend much. We are very much dependent on the donor. So do the same principles which you have outlined here apply in our nation, or is there any other ideas apart from that? Because we need really to become independent, but dependence is very much printed in our mind. So how can Malawi, even including as Africa, become independent of the, yeah, thank you.
How can Malawi or Africa become independent from the West?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Yeah. There is no short answer to this, but I will try. You know, Africa is the richest continent in the world, but it's been inhabited by the poorest people. Not that their continent is poor, but the people themselves, they are poor. Of course, there are factors to it. I don't want to go to all these factors and the causes and why, but the simple thing to do is it should start with the individual changing the mindset and analyzing what we have as a nation. What do we have as a nation? What do we have as a continent? And how can we develop these resources that God has given unto us into wealth? And then, when the people of the country we come to that realization that it's a rich continent, we have the resources, we have the mind, we can develop, then it will be easier to cut our dependency from the West. But if we have inferiority complex, then of course the West will take advantage. They will take the gold, they will take this and that, and then develop. Like in Africa, most of the things, like cocoa is planted in Africa, is exported to Switzerland, and they make wonderful chocolate here, and they send it back to Africa. We buy 10 or 15 times expensive than it is, But the question is, why is the Africans not producing the machine, having the machine to make the chocolate? So there are some things that we can do, and it will start with the willingness of the Africans to come out from that. And of course, they can say, but we were colonized. We don't have a good education system. But that was more than 50 years ago. This is a new time. It gives us a new opportunity. But if we are not willing to take the hard steps, it will not going to help to cut dependency. I'll give a story, an example from our former president. So far, that's what I know. Not Peter Mutharika, but Dr. Bingwa Mutharika. Dr. Bingwa Mutharika, the president of Malawi, if you go to history and you see from 2009 to around 2012, Malawi was developing. And Malawi was just second to Qatar, to the countries that were developing in the world. But you're going to see that there was a pressure that came to Bingwa Mutharika that they should not give subsidy to the farmer from the West. But because he was working with World Bank, he refused. He said, hey, what are you telling me about not giving subsidy to the farmers? Because he literally said that when you talk about farming in Africa, we talk about a woman with a baby on the back, and they are farming with a hoe, with her. And these people, you say they don't deserve subsidy, but the farmers in Europe and in America, they use a tractor and the air conditioning in that, they deserve subsidy. So he refused. He continued to give subsidy to Malawi. And then they said, we're not going to support you. And what did he do? He said, we will work on a zero deficit budget. That means he will do the budget without depending on the West. Because he was an economist, he started growing the economy. And the economy was growing. And through his impact, that's why Malawi was able to do the by-election 2020, the presidential election without any help from the donor community. We ran the election by ourselves as a nation of Malawi because we had a zero deficit policy. But now we don't have that anymore. Over 60% of our budget, we depend on donors. So what changed from 2009 that we had a zero deficit policy and it was working, and now we cannot do. So it's a question that we need to think as Africans that there are some examples of people who have done it, the administration that they have done it. We just have to be strong. But you know, free money is very sweet. You know, when people they're giving you free money, it's very sweet. So it becomes a trap, and people can be. It can become an addiction. I don't know whether it has helped you, Malawians. The answer.
Yeah, thank you very much. It has really helped. Thank you.
All right. Any other question? Before we go. Time out, please come back.
I don't know.
No.
What?
Any other question before we go for break? We have some few minutes until break. So if somebody has a question, I would like to do that so that we just start something after break.
So on the topic we were just talking about, what would you say is there a best example in Africa of a nation going to the zero deficit policy and like still maintaining that today? Or what would you say is the best example today of a nation in Africa thriving on that?
Oh, that's a very good question, but I'm sorry I didn't do the research that I can say this is the best country now, which is following zero deficit. Of course, we still have some problems with dictatorship in Malawi. Not in Malawi. I would say in Africa, in the continent of Africa, because Malawi is still a democratic country. So we have issues like dictatorship in some other countries. With the issue of corruptions is very high. Not that I always say that not that. The Swedes or the Westerners, they are better than the Africans when it comes to corruption. But the problem with Africa is that we don't have structures, systems that prevent people, from becoming corrupt, Because here in Switzerland or any other country, if you have to be corrupt, then you have to be genius. You have to be studied, You have to know how to bend the rules, the corners. While in Africa, most of the African countries, the structures and the systems, they are so loose that from a gate man, somebody standing on the gate, a watchman, to the president, they can be corrupt. You understand? So we need structure change, structure reform, system, I still don't understand today that you can go to the immigration office in my country, that you need to sign papers, and then you put a file and you wait for somebody that they can take these files and bring them in the system and all this. It brings corruption. Because for your file to move from there until you make a passport, you need to give money to some other people. But why, in this modern age, is my government or the administration not asking even help from China or the West, that we just need some few computers to put a system and put everything online, that you put your application online and then you have a date where you can go for interview for your passport. But you just go, you don't know when you're going to have your passport, you find a queue, disorganized. While here, you write on the computer, you apply, and then they give you a date and you make your passport. Of course, maybe we say in Malawi, we say, not everybody is educated to use the computer. But you can still at least have some few people there who are helping the people to fill and do things. It will already reduce the corruption. So the systems that we have sometimes in Africa, they are breeding corruption. And there are some people that they are benefiting from that. In my country, I say more about my country. We have gold. We have precious stones. We have things that they are very, very expensive. And not many Malawians knows about that. But because I researched, I studied, and we have German people, German business people, they come to my country from time to time. Some I know them. They take this gold, come to Germany. The wealthy people. It's very expensive, It's the best gold. But not many Malawians knows about that, So who are facilitating that. There are few corporates in authority. They are making that to be their own personal business at the expense of many Malawians. So these are the things that I said, when you have good systems, good structures, it can prevent poverty and help people at least to be honest. So the Westerners, they're not better than the Africans, but the systems, they prevent them from being corrupt. And on the sad note, I'm finishing with this, we go to break. On the sad note, you're going to see that that's why many missionaries, Western missionaries, when they go to Africa or some other parts, and where the systems they are open and loose, they become more corrupt. They become more corrupt because now the system is what? Is loose, and they can do whatever they can do, and then you see that, you know, they're not better than. So that's the sad note. So we need to work on changing the structure and building good structures that can help prevent people from sinning, because man is sinful and fallen. If he's given a chance, he will do things that you cannot imagine. Say, hey, is this the same person? In my country, you see corrupt pastors. You say, hey, they're pastors, but man is sinful, you know. We can make a difference if we follow the book. Thank you. That was a good question.
Thank you.
Okay. Of course, when it comes to relief development continuum, it's a sensitive topic, and it's really, there is no easy answers to it, because on another hand, it's like you have agencies that's their job. They want to keep relevance. On the other hand, there are victims, there are people that they need help. And if you are not principled enough, it's difficult to draw the line. Say this is enough, this is where we can stop. So we always need the wisdom. So I don't know how we can continue now, because not all, yeah, okay.
Do you think it is the government's responsibility to say this is enough to the NGOs and the different organizations, or should it be the organization's responsibility?
I would say both sides. The NGOs, they have to know what they can do and what is the limit, the time frame. As I said already, that whenever you are entering into a project, you say we are going to Mali, we are going to this country. Already as an organization, come up with a plan that we will go only 3 months, or we will go only 6 months, or a year. It's a 2 years project, and have some phases, you know.
Yes.
Develop like some phase. Phase 1, we want to see these things done. Phase 2, we want to do ABCD, and phase 3, then we are exiting. So that's what I would say. But also the country who are receiving help, they have to know themselves what is good and what is not good, and to say so that this is the help that we need. But the challenge is that most of the countries themselves, maybe they don't know these things. They don't know the impact of dependency. So it feels good when you're just receiving, and you look to be a good person. If you can say, look, we're in a good relationship with Americans and the British, they're helping, and this. So it sounds good, like somebody who can network. You understand? So that's something that we need to be aware of. Yeah, that's a good question.
Are they there yet?
Yeah,
Because I can ask one more question if you want.
yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. Do you think it is counterproductive if, say, a Westerner who wants to empower and mentor local people into business came and set up a business, so for example, a chocolate factory, but only employed local people and then mentored other people, maybe 2 or 3 to be in charge as co-CEOs, and then empowered them and left them the organization, the company, and then set up different businesses around Africa to help them? Or do you think it is, yeah, you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I think business is always a good way to go, even when it comes to discipleship. I find it to be more effective, even like, I'm sorry, more than setting up a GTS. Why am I saying that? When people they're going to do a school, they know I'll be in a school for this 6 months or this 3 months. They can behave, they can choose, I know how to behave, how to communicate, and how this is, But discipleship will happen in a business, because there you have stress, you have people, you have co-workers who are like, giving you tough time. So sometimes new issues they come up. They come out, and then that's where discipleship takes place. And I'm saying this like somebody who has over 50 employees, so I know what I'm talking about. You have real issues because people are working issues of integrity, honesty, and all these things. So you can lead a disciple people through business. So that's a good way that you set up a business and then you empower some people and you give and you set up. These are like you're creating more modules that people can see and and copy from it. And then the only challenge I would say is that you need transparency and accountability, because many people, that's a problem. They come and set the business in Africa or in India or somewhere else, but they're not accountable enough to say, how do you find the starting capital? How did they find it? And how do they manage it? In a way. So if you just set up a business, they don't know how you're finding it. It's difficult for the local people to cope because they don't know where will they get the capital. How do you manage? How do you do market research? What factors has brought you to think this is a viable business? So that's, if you're not careful and you're open in that, once you leave, it will collapse because these people have no knowledge. How did you do it? And I have many examples from different countries that you see that Westerners, they come, they set up a business. Once they go, they collapse. Why? Because there was no accountability structure that these people, they know that they have to know. They really have to know things from the beginning.
Interesting.
Yeah. So now I think we'll go. I can see that people have come in Malawi. I don't know why I'm in Bada and India, if they're back now. But what I want to do now, we want to revisit again the scenario from about Ukraine. And we'll have scenario 2, Malawi. So I want to see the different approach that we will take going back to Ukraine and now to Malawi, applying the relief development continuum. So we have learned that relief, it means you are stopping the blood, the bleeding, and then rehabilitation. So the scenario in Ukraine is that the country is still bleeding. The country is still bleeding right now. So now it will be like if now you are Western governments like NATO or America or what kind of approach are you going to do to stop the breeding?
Yeah.
Because you cannot talk of development if it's still breeding, you understand? So what are you going to do if you are the government? And Malawi, we have a scenario which was a cyclone Fred that's hit Malawi, it has washed the food, the things that the people depend on, the houses collapse, people lives lost, and as I'm speaking, still search and rescue is going on, recovering dead bodies. And it was the time that people are about to harvest and enjoy the thing, the products, and it has been washed away. They are in the season of hunger right now in Blantyre. And according to the report that I got, was that even to find tomato, it's a problem, it's a challenge. So you discuss the steps. How can you rebuild this country on the principles of relief, rehabilitation, and development, so that next time they are better off. So that's so now you have more like a challenge. Compare the approach. What is the approach to Ukraine, which is still breeding, and the approach to Malawi? So let's come up with the solutions, and then we'll take it from there. So let's take 15 minutes about this. Are we okay?
Yes.
Do you guys want to do this all together or in groups?
What we can do together.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Or maybe I should add one more question, a theological question. Do you think this is the end of the world?
In terms of their health. So these people, they need a relief. So the relief that can be given is to provide food, shelter. So some people have lost their parents, some have lost their properties. So they don't have the place where they can live. So the first thing that we can do is to provide them with shelter. After then, they need psychosocial needs in terms of their mental health, because some have been disturbed in their mind. So they need some ways of encouragement that can make them move forward. So they need these experts that can give them the ways of encouragement in order for them to move forward. So the other thing that they can be given is to involve the community on how they can rebuild their homes. These people, they have some have locally available resources. So they need, the experts need to involve this community in order for them to build their homes by themselves, or by some supporters or sponsors that can help them to make them stand again. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. So Malawi, get prepared for some questions. I open the microphone now to India or Nigeria or Switzerland if they have a question to ask you guys. So not the one who has presented, but anybody can answer depending on what you talked about. Any question, guys? To their solutions, to their problem. No question. They have nailed it, yeah? India, you don't have a question for the Malawians to their solutions? You think they'll work?
Actually, yeah, we couldn't understand. We couldn't understand very well. That's why. We don't have power right now, so yeah. I mean, we cannot use the loudspeaker, so we couldn't hear well.
Okay, so can I repeat? I repeat, okay?
Yeah, please. I was gonna ask you to do that.
Okay. So according to the Malawians, they said the first thing that need to be done now is to continue the relief because people they lost shelter, they lost food and water supplies, and they still need that. And the second thing they say people they will need this psychosocial therapy because people they have been disturbed in their mind. Some they lost their loved ones, so they need counseling from experts. And the third thing is to involve the communities because most of the communities they have locally available resources which can help them to rebuild. So that's what they said. So now if you have questions to them, to ask them, how long is it, what? Yeah, so anything, ask them so that we can hear from them. Yeah. I think it's clear now in India.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And we want to ask for how long would they try to give those relief to those affected people?
Okay. The question for you Malawians is, did you talk about how long are you willing to give relief for the agencies that are helping? How long should they be giving the relief to Malawi? Malawians, please, that's your question. It's not my question.
Okay, thank you very much. We think it's I mean the relief has to continue being provided to them because since it's very hard to rebuild because the rains are still coming. But I think the moment the rains have stopped, while again we are taking much time to make sure that we do the other logistics for the rebuilding, then soon after that, the relief can stop while we are rebuilding, and we are giving them some things that they can help apart from the relief. But as for now, since the rains are still there, then we can wait. We can continue doing that until we start rebuilding.
Okay, just the time frame. How long does you think it will take? In months or what?
With our development here, I think by 3 months to come, that can be okay.
Okay, so they think 3 months relief should continue for 3 months. Thank you so much. Another question for them?
Yes. So should the relief work be done by outsiders or should it actually be done by local people? What is the balance there?
Okay, another question for you guys from Malawi. They said, should the relief be done by international organization or the local people should do it? Should they given the money to do it, or the international agencies should do it by themselves or together? What do you think?
Okay, because some of the areas in Malawi are not affected, and some other people are capable of having things that can help others. But still, even though we can help our own, the outsider organization can even help us. So on both parties, we can need help from them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, their answer is to work together. Another question for them?
Yeah, sure. What kind of, do you guys see any kind of preventive measures that can be taken in terms of better preparing you all next time if anything like this happened again? What kind of preventive measures could be in place?
Okay, did you get the question? How will you prevent the next cyclone or disaster in Malawi? What measures are you taking? What are you planning?
The plan is simple. We can allocating people, moving people from the areas that can be easily affected to the areas that they can stay there safely. Thank you.
Thank you. Another question?
What are some ways that international groups can actually work with the chiefs, the mayors of the local areas and districts of Malawi so that they're given, so that they are honored and it is not done just as an outside source?
Do you guys in Malawi have the ways that the help that is coming from international agents? It's going to the chiefs, and that the chiefs and the people who are affected, they feel honored, they feel that they are part of it. Maybe we can also add the other part that how do you deal with the corruption in the system that actually the help is coming to the affected people? That's the last one now for you guys. We'll close.
On that wonderful, good question, by working together with both the chiefs and even the international communities, that can reduce the rate of corruption among the people. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
A hand for them. So now we'll go to Switzerland. They'll share about Ukraine. Then we'll just ask them a few questions as well. Then we can move on. Anybody else would like to share from Switzerland? Please prepare questions. They were asking you some questions. Ask them hard questions, okay?
We were talking about Malawi, not Ukraine.
In the end, we talked about how do we stop the bleeding.
One of the Swiss people wants to.
I've been there for the whole discussion. It just came in.
I mean, you guys can add on a lot. We spent about 2 or 3 minutes talking about Ukraine at the end, so we don't have a fully fleshed out plan or statement. But we were just talking about just making sure, like, potential, like if Russia were, we have to. Sorry, I'm trying to have words together. Well, we were talking about how things with like Russia and how they perhaps have to know that, hey, their nation's not going to fall apart if there is peace and such. I think from the ongoing war, there's definitely potential fear that Russia may have that if they lose this war, then their nation would fall apart and crumble to the influence of the West. And so then, it's hard to stop the bleeding of an ongoing war, because if you patch one bullet hole, the next one will just be made. So, we can take care of the needy and those suffering in the war right now, and then do our best to continue to advocate for peace and to advocate that both nations can independently still thrive and be rebuilt and reshapen, and that one side losing the war does not mean that a full destruction of the other. But yes, we didn't have a fully fleshed out thought. So yes, we were talking mostly about Malawi during the time.
All right. That's Switzerland. Do you have any questions? In summary, what they say, the first thing is to deal with the conflict to stop the conflict between Putin and Ukraine, because it's difficult to stop the bleeding when the war is going on. So that's the approach, and then continuing assisting the victims, people who are in trouble. So they didn't finish, but you are still welcome to ask them some questions. They will answer one on one. Why do they think that they have to stop the war, and how? So yeah, the microphone is open. No questions for them?
How do you think we can stop the war? How bring the peace between the two countries?
With tanks, Anybody from you guys, how do you think you'll stop the war? What plan? What is the strategy?
So I was talking about to bring us the reconciliation between the West and Russia, because West had provoked Russia for a long time with with war or whatever it is, like with the EU and with the UN and also with the NATO. They provoked a lot against Russia, and also how was that called? Even with the petrol and gas, what they did with Russia is also evil. So first we have to bring the reconciliation on this diplomatic level to talk and to sort out things.
Okay, thank you so much. Diplomacy is the way. I like it because I'm studying that. So Switzerland thinks that it's not about the tanks, fighting will just escalate things, but you need to sit and talk. Another question for them? We are good, eh? They nailed it, eh? Oh, a question from
I have one question for the Switzerland team.
Yes, go ahead.
When we go back into history, in 1914, we find that there was a First World War. So after the end of the First World War, then later we had a Second World War. Now, on the scenario of Ukraine and Russia, what are the measures that can be put in place in order to prevent a future war between Russia and Ukraine? Thank you.
That's a very good question. So, what are the measures that you can put to prevent a further war between Ukraine and Russia? Maybe in essence, they are bringing that they are afraid that it can escalate into a third world war because it started first, second. So what? Yeah.
It's a discussion probably we could all have. I could throw an idea, but I mean, it's just one thought. But like there are a number of times there's been de-escalation zones. So like between North and South Korea, there was ones in Northern Ireland for a while. These kind of areas that whatever the agreed upon borders are, that hopefully there's some sort of mediation, some sort of, I don't know in this scenario if there can be a perfect, like, okay, you take this land, I take this land. But for the sake of discussion, I think that'd be one possibility. You could have sort of, UN soldiers and preventative measures along a de-escalation zone that can at least kind of separate powers and create kind of a middleman in between. This is at least seemed to largely work North South Korea, even like Northern Cyprus, Southern Cyprus, Northern Ireland at the time. So even though we haven't, I don't think there's been an example where it's been at maybe this massive scale in modern day. But I would perhaps suggest post-war an agreement about a guard zone internationally that everybody has to abide to.
All right. So they are giving the example for Korea to have places where you can say these are the boundaries, and then you have UN Security Council and the soldiers, you know, making sure that the borders they are respected. The challenge, although, we don't have the same value system, we don't have the same standards, we don't have the same worldview, we don't have the same understanding. What we say ethics and morality in Europe, it's not the same in Russia and other parts of the world. So in diplomacy and international negotiation, they say you have to always find the zone that you can all agree, you can bargain, you know. So like the issue with now Ukraine and Russia, is there somewhere that these guys they can agree and meet? So that's the difficult position now, because like both parties they are not yet willing to say this is the compromise, this is the middle point that we have to agree, and also the fear from the Western countries that if Russia takes Ukraine, then they are coming closer and closer to Europe. So then it becomes an issue that more negotiation they are needed until that zone, the compromise zone, is found, which is not easy at this moment. And last night I was awake thinking about this. So I want us to, this time, what I felt in the night, by 2 I was awake. I was thinking and praying, and was awake. So what I heard is that we can take this time. Let's just take 5 minutes in our countries just to pray for Ukraine and Russia, because there are things that we cannot solve. We need God's intervention, and I think diplomacy is the way that people can. They have to agree, because if you can go back, no any other kingdoms or empire was destroyed because of fighting. It was just it was through internal weaknesses that was destroying the empire. So I don't think that we can bomb Russia and defeat it like from outside. And is this the solution that lives they are destroyed in Ukraine, people they are losing their homes, and is that the way to go? And if you go in the Bible, you're going to see that Pharaoh was the powerful king, and when Moses was to take away the children of Israel out of the country, you're not going to see that God said bomb Egypt, it was more like negotiation. Moses had to go and talk with Pharaoh, and then he go to pray that he didn't allow us to go. He go back to God and pray, and then he goes back and say do this, and then the Pharaoh refused until he could say go, okay, until he could allow from the pressure, also from the supernatural. Pharaoh said no, go, get out. So I think I want that we can take 5 minutes to pray, because there's power in prayer. Okay, I think if there was no power in prayer, Jesus wouldn't tell us that we can pray that may your kingdom come, may your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So I still believe that Jesus implies that in our prayer we can change the course of history. Yes. Okay, the kingdom of God has come, but not fully. But through our prayers, we can bring more of God's will and God's intentions. Yes. So I think the issue of Ukraine and Russia, we need God's intention. We need God to intervene. So now, since you're not America, you're not NATO, you are the worldview students, what you can do now is to pray, because you're not going to talk with Russia, you're not going to talk with Ukraine, but your prayers can do a lot. Prayers don't need a drum. When you pray here, God has the access to men's hearts. Okay, he has the way that he can speak directly to Putin. You know, he can speak directly to Zelensky and the international community. He doesn't need somebody to, because he has access of people's heart. And the Bible says that the king's heart is in the hands of the Lord, and he directs them. That's the word. So that's what I felt tonight, that I think we can take time to pray. So let's just break in 4 groups. I'm in four people, and you pray together for Ukraine and Russia. We'll take 5 minutes, then we'll come back and continue. In India, in Malawi, in Ibadan, and Switzerland. Let's pray for Russia. Because you're the God who hears prayers and you answer prayer. Therefore, listen to the prayers from your children, from India, from Nigeria, from Malawi, and here in Switzerland about the issue and the situation of Ukraine. Give it in your hand, because you are sovereign, you are all powerful, you are all knowing, and you know how to talk to Putin, to talk to each and every leader of this world, because you have the power to direct our hearts, as just like you direct the streams of water. We just commit this situation at your hand, that Lord, there will be a diplomatic solution. Yeah. That Lord, you're going to raise people that can intervene and bring the parts and different parties and countries together and have a diplomatic solution. We thank you because you are able to do more than what we are asking. In Jesus' name. Amen. 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 Okay. Thank you so much. Just some few thoughts about Malawi, the cyclone. Thank you for sharing that the relief should still go on for 3 months. And this year, Malawi is going to face a big hunger because we have lost the crops, and at the same time also people would have not harvested enough anyway, because many didn't apply the fertilizer. So in whatever the plans that are there, agriculture should be prioritized to help people to farm again, whether through irrigation or what. But also we need to be careful not to create more dependency as a nation. We have to know how long we can give the relief, and also we have to apply to learn what we learned yesterday, that we need to segregate. There are some reports as well now that some of the camps, people who were not affected, they didn't lose anything. They are going to the camp just because life is too hard. They think if they get free food, it's fine. So that will create problems as well in the long run. So I'm glad that Malawians, as Malawians, we are strong. We can come back, and that's even some from the Worldview School, they've been involved in helping this community. That's great. Let's keep on doing that, and let's hold hands as Malawians to come out of these problems. Together as a nation, as the southern part of Malawi, we can do it through the help that is coming, and ourselves and our knowledge, we can do it. Nothing is impossible. So I just wanted to share these words with you guys, Malawians, and that let's keep on believing that Malawi one day can be a breadbasket to help other countries. Yeah, and about Ukraine, I've heard many people, and even preachers, theologians, some they are going around and preaching that this is the end of the world. But now Jesus is coming soon, and the rapture is happening, and then we'll leave the world to the devil, things like that. I just want to say that That's a misinterpretation of scripture. Let's keep on bringing reformation and transformation. That's what Jesus has called us. He said, do business until I come. So we are called to continue working until Jesus comes back. We are not to retreat. We are not to run away. We are to continue. So the story which was coming for me as an example, it was this guy who was born 28 March 1592. His name was John Amos of Communitz. But yeah, during that time, you can read all the from the book of Vishal Mangalavadi, the story from page, I think page 213. There's that story. Europe was dark. There was war going on. Himself, he experienced war. He didn't even hear from somebody else, but himself, he lost his family in the war. And it was really, really hard. It was really difficult. And I think if some theologians could be asked by then, they could say Jesus is coming soon. That's the end of the world, you know. But when Communitz was asked whether he thinks that Europe can be reformed, he said yes. Europe can be reformed by investing in the next generation, educating the next generation. So he is called most of the times the father of modern education, although the secular people, they don't really recognize that, but he laid that foundation of education. And through that effort, we have seen Europe coming out of that problem and become even the mission sending agent of the world after those troubles. So what I want to say is that there's still hope for Ukraine. There's still hope for Russia. There's still hope for Europe if we can educate the next generation. I like what Vishal has done. He has a book called The Third Revolution of Education. I don't know the title exactly, but he talks about how the education, biblical education, can create again humanity and bring dignity and bring that transformation which can reform our world today.
Very good.
So we are not yet at the end of the world, but we're living in the world of the end. Okay? We are not yet at the end of the world, but we're living in the world of the end. And Jesus said, the apostles say from the time of Jesus, the early church, he said, we're living in the last days. So we're living in the world of the end. We are not at the end yet. So it's not time to relax and wait for rapture. It's time to work to make our hands dirty. That's what I wanted to say. Okay. Any question? Now I'm moving on to something now. Biblical development. If you talk of development from the biblical perspective, what are the indicators? What are the things that you can say this country is developed and this is not? So I want to give you these 4 indicators that you can look for in every country, every community that you can go, because that's what you see from the life of Jesus. So somebody can just read Luke, the Gospel of Luke, chapter 2, verse 52, so that we can learn something from it.
Jesus is wisdom and stature, and in favor with God and man.
Okay. So he said Jesus was growing in 4 areas. Okay. It's quite like challenging to think that God, the Son of God, was growing. Sometimes we can think like that it was just like knowing everything, but Luke, the historian, And the physician is telling us that there was development, there was growth that was taking place in the life of Jesus. So he was growing physically, he was growing socially, he was growing spiritually, and he was growing in wisdom. That's the 4 areas of growth that we can take it as an indicator. If we say Jesus is our model, with somebody that we look to, so we need to check on this one, on these 4 areas. So Jesus was born as a baby, but he was growing physically. So we can also, if you look around, if you go into the nations, developing nations, and so you have these 4 indicators, you find out that physical development, it means how we take care of the environment and all the other things that concerns the nations. You know, you find some nations, they're clean, some not, you know. You find there's some countries, they have trash management problem, all the other things that they are affecting that country when it comes to hygiene and preventing sicknesses and disease. So that's the area that the country or a community can grow, physical development. We can look that as an indicator that how are they doing physically? What are the things which can bring problems, you know, in this nation or in this community, you know? So that's an indicator. Social development, it's how are the people relating to one another, you know, because they say Jesus was also growing socially, you know. He needed to relate with people, he needed to choose his disciples, you know, he needed to connect to people, you know. He was, yeah, so he needed to grow in that area. So you'll find some cultures, they're good in that, some not, you know.
In terms of social, how people relate to each other, what is a way to go into a country without bias? Because of course there are different cultures and ways that people relate to each other, and you can interpret it as they have bad connection, but actually that is a cultural thing.
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. I'll come to that. I'll come in a few minutes. I'm going to answer that question, but I don't want to forget this point. The social development, you know, like, you know, as a measure, you're going to look at, you know, first before we look at the intercultural, cross-cultural relations, we look at the culture itself. How are the people relating in the culture? Okay, is it the open culture? Are people able to express their views? What are the social welfare system in the country, and how is it going? I was sharing during the break, I think exactly, about my time when I came to Switzerland. What was the challenging thing, and what is still the challenging thing here, that, you know, when you want to meet somebody, they will check their agenda and they say, oh yeah, I only have time in June. You want to talk with somebody now, you know, you will have time with you in June or in 3 weeks. So can you imagine if I have a problem, I have some suicidal thoughts, I want to kill myself, I just want somebody to hear me. Am I going to wait until June before I kill myself? So you see that is a poverty of relationship, you know, social connection. So other countries or other places, they can be socially poor but have material prosperity and other things, while other nations, they can be socially rich but materially poor. So that's the aspect of the social development I'm talking about. So coming to your question, how can you interpret the cultures, what is normal and what is not normal? Because some people, they might be smiling while they're crying. You know, you have cultures that, you know, you think they're smiling, but they're crying, you know. So that's what we call, when it comes to development, that each and every individual who want to work cross-culturally, they need to study the culture that they are going. What are the symbols mean in the culture, and what is normal and what is not normal? And if you don't know that, you do more harm than than good, you know. Like I always have this story. We have a dramatist in Malawi called Manganya. He made a documentary once about a Western lady who came to Malawi to do some work. So here, I think he was from the UK. She was from the UK and come to Malawi. So he was playing the law over Manganya, the houseboy. And what happened was that, you know, in the UK, you can give gifts and, you know, you can be friendly to men, and it doesn't mean anything. You're good friends, okay? So, but for the culture in Malawi, the way he portrayed in the drama was that, you know, when that kind of gesture is happening, they begin to interpret something that, oh, maybe this lady, she likes me. So to make the matters worse, the lady bought some underwear pants for, you know, for this houseboy, you know. So she bought some pants and gave him as a gift. And then Manganya, in the drama, he interpreted that, okay, now this woman want to have sex with me. So then he went to take a shower, you know, and then he was laying down on the bed of this lady, you know. And the woman was shocked, you know. Huh? What are you doing in my bed? He said, I thought we like each other. I said, no. And I said, what are you doing in my bed? Get out of my bed. He said, get out, why? Why should I get out? I thought you bought me a pants. You said you bought me a underwear. Huh? So to that culture, they thought if you do that and buying underwear for somebody, you really want to have sex with them. So that's why you need cultural education when you have to go cross culture. That's why even when I'm taking a team from here to Malawi or somewhere else, I do cultural preparation. It's very, very important to learn about cultures, cross-cultural communication, cross-cultural understanding, because that will save you a lot of headache to do. Otherwise, you'll make a lot of mistakes. I hope it helps. Okay, so that's social development. We need to grow the way we relate to people. If we don't grow, sometimes you might be in trouble, not because there's no help, but because you are not a social being. Okay? You are not sociable. So you will see some cultures, they are group-oriented culture. Some cultures, they are individualistic. So we need to balance that. And of course, the other indicator is the spiritual growth. You need to grow, to always grow spiritually in our relationship with God. You're going to see that Jesus himself, he could every day take time to spend time with his Father, to have spiritual growth. You know, as we have learned that the causes of poverty, they are not just only material causes. There is mental, social, and spiritual, and physical causes to poverty. So you need to be growing in these four areas. As an individual person, as also as a nation, we need to make sure that we are growing. You find some countries, they are struggling in the area of wisdom. They don't have education system, you know, there's no schools and all these things. So this is an indication and an indicator for development. So if you are called to work in a development area, how do you set up your project? You know, how do you do an assessment? You use these indicators. Okay, there are some projects that you can do in a specific area which cannot work in other things. I cannot come here in Switzerland and say that I want to work to make a project that helps the social development, because you have the recycling system developed, you know, they collect all the trashes, and it's working well. It's the system is functioning, you know. But when we look at the social development, yes, I can start a project in that. Maybe I'll open a coffee place, you know, where old people and what they can come and hang out with the idea that they can talk and share their challenges with somebody who listens and care. Okay, it will be a viable project that I can do. But when it comes to environment, it will be something that maybe is not that needed. Yes, I can start a project in Switzerland about spiritual, because it's a spiritual need. You have 3% or 2% Christians, things like that, But schools, you have many schools and many things. So these are the indicators that you can see when you go to which country, to any country, what project can you do that will be helpful. Okay, when you come to my country or to India, maybe you need to think about also physical problem. Physical projects like trash management and all these kind of things. They'll be viable projects because they're causing people sick, problems. So these are indicators for growth. When we talk about biblical development, we look at these four areas. Any question? Clear? Malawi, Nigeria, India. Any question? Okay, we have 10 minutes to go before lunch. So we finish with this exercise. We can share tomorrow. Mainly the idea with this exercise, if Jesus was growing, what kind of conditions was he? So the first thing that I want you guys to analyze, what was the political situation during Jesus' time? Do you think was it easy? Or was it difficult? Just find out, not only from this scripture that we have read, but from your knowledge of the Bible. What was the political condition of Jesus? And what about the religious situation? Was it easy? The religious was just good, or was it difficult? Just make an analysis about that. And what about Jesus' family? What was Jesus' family situation? Was it good? Was there some challenges? And how did he manage to grow? So that's the discussion that you can make, and we will share tomorrow. Okay. At least from my side, I would say I will end here. So I give it to you.
Yes.
And discuss and yeah.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's kind of your groups, I would say. Good.
To talk about this?
Yes.
Okay.
We're gonna discuss it now.
Want to your
What are your thoughts?